Zok the Heilige Gemara. We are on Daf Nun Tes Amar Aleph, and we are Reb Chia Bar Abba Ikloi Le Gavlo. Reb Chia Bar Abba Ikloi Le Gavlo. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Reb Chia Bar Abba came to the city of Gavlo. Chaza b'nois Yisrael. He saw that they were Jewish girls. The Ma'avrin Me'oivdei Kechavim Shemalu V'Loitavu. They had conceived children from goyim that mildly tzarich gears, but they weren't total yet, so they weren't complete gerim yet. That's the first thing he saw. The next thing he saw was chazo chamro the mozgu oivde gechavim b'shasu Yisrael. He saw wine that the goyim diluted with water, which we learned is osir, and the Eden were drinking it. And chaza termusa, he saw a certain type of bean that needs to be very well cooked before it can be edible. The sholki lahu oivde kechav. Goyim cooked it. V'achli Yisrael, and Yisrael ate it, meaning they were eating bishalakim. V'loy amar lahu v'loy midi. Reb Chia Bar Abba did not comment. He just saw what happened. Then Reb Chia Bar Abba went to Rabbi Yochanan, also the Chamed Rabbi Yochanan, and he told Rabbi Yochanan what he saw there. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said, "Say go v'hachreis al b'neim shem mamzer." First, you have to announce that the children that were born from these goyim shemolu v'leitavlu, they're mamzerim, and the Gemara will explain the reasoning for that. V'al yenon, you also have to announce that their wine is asur mishum yayin nesach. That we understand because we know that the gzer was even for the goy to be mozik yayin. V'al tarmusan, and their tarmusan, whatever vegetable this was, mishum bishulei oivdei kecha. It's also because of bishul. Why is it also as bishalakim? Mishum she'enon b'nei Torah. Because the people of this city are not b'nei Torah. Now that in and of itself is quite puzzling. What does that have to do with bishalakim? And the Gemara is going to explain everything. Zok the Gemara. Al b'neim shem amzerim. That's Rabbi Yochanan Tamei. That's Rabbi Yochanan had two halachas that he said that combined results in the fact that these children will be mamzerim. The first halacha that Rabbi Yochanan taught us is the Omer Rabbi Yochanan lo'olam ein ger at sheyimo v'yitva. A ger is not a complete yid until the completion of the process mila and tefila. V'chivin lo'oy tovel, and since in this case he was not tovel, therefore oived kechavim hu, he's a goy. Yomer Rabba Bar Bar Chana, and Rabba Bar Bar Chana taught us in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that oived kechavim ve'eved haba al bas Yisrael abad mamzer. So that's why the vlad is a mamzer. One moment. Okay, gewaltig. So based on Rabbi Yochanan and Chita, the children born from this marriage are mamzer. The Gazer al Yena Mishum Yain Nesach. And Rabbi Yochanan said to announce that the people of Gavla, their wine is Yain Nesach, Mishum Lech Lech Amrin Nazira. We told the Nazir, go away, Schar Sechar, circumvent, Lekarma Loisikra. Don't get close to the Isser, don't get close to the vineyard. So too, when it comes to Yain Nesach, not only do we also Yain Nesach, we also Aser, Chazal also Asered, if the goyim merely dilute the wine. That's enough to cause a problem. Okay? What about the third thing? Why? Frank the Gemara, I don't understand. Taima the Einan B'nei Torah. You're telling me that the only reason why it's also it's an extra gzeira because since these people were not nisar, so Rabbi Yochanan felt we should be extra stringent with them. Ha B'nei Torah. But if they were B'nei Torah, Sharia would be mutter. This is an Isser of Bishul Akum. You can't be matter Bishul Akum just because they're B'nei Torah. Shmuel bar Rabbi Omarav, Kol Shenechal Kamoy Shehu Chai, Ein By Mishum Bishul Adekachol. If a guy cooks an apple for you, you buy from him a canned peach, which you could have eaten the peach raw. There, even though the guy cooked it, it's not Bishul Akum. However, turmus, which you cannot eat raw, you cannot eat it without Bishul. There's an Isser Bishul Akum. So if there's an Isser Bishul Akum, Vosebes to B'nei Torah, there wouldn't be that Isser. Zok to Gemara, I'll tell you why. Because Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan kihach lishnas really. He holds this lotion that has another condition in order for something to be osir al Bishul Akum. Condition number one is it cannot be nechal chai. But even if it cannot be nechal chai, it needs another factor that should be considered Bishul Akum. Damar Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak Amarav, Kol she'eino oilo l'shulchan shel malachim, l'lava spoyes apas. Any food that wouldn't be served at a state dinner as an accompaniment to bread, ein by mishum bishul adekachol. And therefore, these two musan are something that you would never serve at a state dinner. It's more like a lower class food. And therefore, there's no din of Bishul Akum that applies to it. And therefore, Taima, the Einam B'nei Torah. About these people in Gavla were not B'nei Torah, their Rabbanim were more nizer with them, so that they should stay away from others. B'nei Torah, but if there would be B'nei Torah, then there wouldn't be a need for this extra Gzeira. Sharia would have been with it. Beautiful. Now we have a new Shaila. Boy B'nei Rav Kahana. There was a Shaila asked from Rav Kahana. Now, the way the Rashbam learns this Shaila, actually, there's a Machlekes Rashbam and Tosfos. I'm going to teach it like Tosfos. The way Tosfos learns the Shaila is a goy allowed to be Moilech Hanovim Lagas? So you want to hire the goy to take the grapes that have been harvested off the vine, they put them into a bucket, into a vat, some type of container, and they bring it to the gas, and they then unload it in the gas. So the question is, when they're unloading it in the gas, would there be a problem? Because when they're unloading the novim in the gas, if there's already wine there that's flowing, and we know the Mishnah Achrona says that once there's wine that's flowing, it's considered wine. It could be Yain Nesach. Is the dumping of the anovim that they have into the gas, would that be considered like they're touching it? Now, of course, it's not mamish Yain Nesach. They're not touching the wine at all. However, Amalahu also mishum lech lech amrin nazira schor schor lekam lesikra. The same way they answered a goy pouring water into the wine, so do they answer the goy just pouring the grapes into the gas. That also is also because they might come to touch it. How could you say, Rav Kahana, that it's osir? We have a brisa that seems to indicate otherwise. The brisa says, the goy that brought grapes to the gas, bisalin, either in baskets or turning over uvidudurin, or some type of smallish container. So we're going to turn now on Talmud Beis. And even though there's wine oozing around on those grapes, mutter will be mutter. So how could you tell me that it's not allowed? These grapes are mutter, the wine's mutter, doesn't aser. Amar Rav Kana said, heavy comrade, b'di eved, sure, b'di eved, if a goy loaded those grapes into the gas avada, it wouldn't pass because it didn't touch the wine. But anol lechatchila kamina. I just said lechatchila you shouldn't allow the goy to load the grapes into the gas. However, with the Eved, if he did it, Avada, it would still be mutter. Zok to Gemara, Ahu Esroig, a goy had an esrog. The Nofal Lechavisa de Chamra, it fell into a barrel of wine that belonged to a Yid. So the goy wanted to save his esrog. Idri Oived Kechavim, the goy jumped, Vishakli, and scooped up the esrog. So right now his hand is in the wine, holding on to his esrog. Amalu Ravashi. Ravashi said, you know what you need to do right away to prevent the wine from becoming yayin esech? The fact that he plunged his hand into the wine, that won't make it yayin esech. And Tosfos offers 3 reasons why. One is because it's like he thought it was shemen, or it's like it's not even there. He's just looking for his esrog. But Amalu Ravashi, in order to make sure that when he takes his hand out, it's not shichshuk, and it won't make it into yayin esech, Noktuli Odei, grab onto his hand right away and don't let him shake. And don't even with his hand together lift it up out of the water, out of the wine, because while he does that, he can make shichur. So therefore, ubertsu adashaifa, lean the barrel over to the opposite side of his hand, so the water level or the wine level where his hand is will drop. Now his hand is out of the wine. Now you could take his hand out of the wine. So you're preventing any opportunity for the goy to make yain nesach, and then the wine will be mutter. Amar Ravashi, Ravashi said another. A goy was menasach a yid's wine b'chavona. He knows he went and he poured it l'avodah Zara and he made it asher bana. Even though it's also for this yid, the owner of the wine, to sell this wine, because now it's mamish yayin nesach, it's a mamish asher bana. He's allowed to demand and accept payment from the guy who did this to him. My timer, miklakalia. We look at it like he poured the wine out. He destroyed the wine, so he could mon the guy al tzmazik. Not that he's selling the wine, because the wine's asher bana, but he's entitled al tzmazik to collect the damages that the goy caused. Amar Rashi mina aminallah. How do I know this? That he can collect damages, he just can't sell the wine. The Tanya we learned, a goy that was menasech, the wine of a yid, but shaloi b'fnei just on the ground. It wasn't in front of a getchka. He did it for the avodah zarah, but there was not a getchka right there. Asur, it still is asur because it's yain nesach. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, matir mishum shnei devarim. There's 2 mukaimis to be matir in this case. Echad shein menaskin yain ela b'fnei avodah zarah. It's not called nisach unless it's directly in front of the getchka. So this wouldn't answer. The echad, even if this was in front of a getchka, the yid can tell the guy, loy kol hemenach sheteser yaini loitzi. You can't answer my wine. It's my wine. You can't just answer it. Now, of course, we don't pass like that. But Zok Rashi, even though we're not samich on Rabbi ben Beseira to be samich to sell the wine to somebody else, we all it's also bana. Even though the getchka wasn't there, it's also bana. And yes, a guy could answer the yid's wine, but me'ahu ayvit kechavim mia shari lefurei niskay. He is allowed to accept damages from the guy mishum tan the lokalim. So basically, from Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi ben Beseira, we see the shita of the Rabbanan. So even though they hold it, you can't sell it, but if a zoyvite, there will be moida that you can demand damages from the guy. Gewaltig. Zog the Gemara weiter. Hahu chavisa de chamra. There was a barrel of wine. The shtaka lebarza. The spigot in it fell out. Now the whole barrel is going to drain down to the level of the spigot. So also the Goy came quickly. Idri, he jumped, and Anach Yoda Iluya, he plugged the hole with his hand. Amar Rav Papa said, now the guy is touching the wine. So therefore, Kol Lahadi Barza, Chamer Aser. Any wine that's right near where the opening is will be Aser. The Idach, turning on to Daf Samach Amar Aleph, the Idach will be shari. That was one shot. That only that little bit of wine that's right there by the opening is Aser. Now you might ask how you're going to separate those wines from each other. So the Tosfos explains that would become bottle in Roiv of the barrel. The Ikadami, and there are those who say Amar Papa Ad Habarza Chamer Aser. Anything above that hole is Aser, because by the guy holding his hand there, he's holding up all that wine. If he pulls it out, he pulls his thumb away, that wine's all going to drain until the level of the hole. The Idach, but everything below the hole would be Shari. Amar Rav Yemar Ketanoi. Rav Papa's halacha is not unanimous. There's a machlokes Tanaim about it, and Rav Papa is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, who's the miyut, and therefore we don't pass like Rav Papa. And in fact, we would hold that the entire jug becomes also, because it says chavis and nokva. There was a chavis that had a hole. Bein mi pia, bein mi shula. Saifa was on the top, Saifa was on the bottom. Bein mitzidea, the nogabay tful yoim, and the tful yoim, someone who's tamei touches it. Tameya, the whole contents of the barrel becomes tummy, because we look at it like he's touching everything. Similarly, by Yain Nesach, we would say the same thing. However, Yudaimer mi pia umishuleha tameya. If for the top and for the bottom, that's tummy. And Tosfos explains, mi pia would be tummy because he's holding it up by keeping his thumb there, and mishuleha. I'm sorry. If the hole was mi pia, then most of the wine is beneath his hole. But that wine is a bosses to the wine that's opposite the mouth of the barrel. So since the whole wine is holding up the wine that he's touching, it all becomes aser. In Mishulah, and anything that's below, that everything that's above the hole. So if the hole is at the bottom, so now he's holding up all the wine because it's the hole's at the bottom and it would all drain out if he took his hand away. But mitzideh Torah, the stuff that's right connected it would be tahor. Mikan or mikan, from either side. In other words, he's not holding it up, and it's not a bosses, and it's not right near. So that would be the similar to the shita of Rav Papa, and Rabbi Yehuda is the miyot keneged the chachamim, and therefore it's Rashi we pass with the chachamim that if there was a hole in the barrel and the person's blocking the hole, a guy is blocking the whole barrel becomes shaynes. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to finish up Nun Tes. And Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow morning we learn of Samach at 7 o'clock. I will not be in shul, but Be'ez Hashem at 7 I will be online to learn the Daf Samach, and Mitzvah at 9 o'clock once again. Everybody should have a gebench tavach, a gidavach, a mazel tekavach.